Hey, this is Patrick. This is Tokyo Terminal Diary 3. Today is Wednesday, February the 16th. Sun is outside, shining, although it's still freezing, which explains the pockets of dirty black snow that you'll find in the streets. Remnants of last Monday's incredible blizzard in which I stayed inside and just, tried to stay warm and not die of exposure. But Matt Alt ran out into the park like a little kid and began constructing snow bunnies. Okay, so what's been going on for the last day or so? Well, I killed some time yesterday before hooking up with my buddy Yoshiki Takahashi, who's the co-screenwriter of the incredible new film Cold Fish, which I'm going to talk about at length later on during this VCast. But first I went to Isetan. Okay, Isetan is probably the most fashionable department store in Tokyo in terms of its reputation and the quality of the goods inside and the price, which is not nice. You're looking at, $2,000 for a writing pen, maybe $1,000 for some cufflinks, but really, really gorgeous stuff, not only from international brands and designers, but also some homegrown local talent as well. And I just go inside and look around. It's like a museum. The staff understands that. They don't really pounce on you like a pack of hyenas to try to get you to try things on and buy them. So it's a pretty relaxing atmosphere. And one fun fact that's something about me is that when I actually do receive a paycheck that's larger than $2, I will invest that money when I can, not only into instant ramen, but also video games. No, also audiophile level stereo equipment. I like music, so I like hearing it really well, and some people don't understand that. Some people like iPods and have reduced their CD collections into 192 kilobytes per second MP3s, but I'm not going to do that. But luckily for me, Isetan actually had an audiophile stereo section inside, because that truly is the mark of a real gentleman, is his pipe, his gold, and how good his stereo sounds. And especially at a time now when people, mostly consume things or receive things through, streaming or, digital downloads like music or books. I'm interested in quality. I'm interested in the way things are sewn into garments and stuff like that. And I'm also interested in super audio CDs. Okay, I can't even explain to you why this sounds better on my rig than it might on yours, or it might sound better on yours than mine. I know the first thing anyone thinks when you mention a super audio CD is like, oh, those things still around? Well, yes, they are. Here is a jazz and classical sampler from the Lin company of loudspeaker makers. And this might actually be the cheapest thing on sale at Isetan at a mere 2,000 yen, which is about US 25 bucks. So I did make my purchase there, and I got the most valuable thing in the world, which is the Isetan shopping bag. Okay, which I proceeded to walk around. I went to Uniqlo, and I hit everyone in the face with it, just brutally, until they bled from the nose. After that, I went to Marui Men's, which is the nearby, another department store set up kind of to compete with Isetan, to be perfectly honest with you. Fun fact about me, I used to work for Marui for about a year in 2008, helping to set up their English language e-commerce site, which unfortunately launched just as the Lehman shock hit and everyone lost their shirt, no pun intended. But I love Marui, I love it there, especially because they have this thing going on called the Final Sale, which means they have lots and lots of merchandise for like 20 to 70% off, which explains why there's more people inside buying stuff than there is at Isetan. And it's cool. I checked out Peyton Place for Men, who makes some really crazy stuff. One of the clerks there recognized me from buying a pair of shoes, I think like 4 or 5 years ago. And he showed me some really, really amazing things at PPFM that like no one in their right mind could wear, except just like a, like a lunatic Japanese guy in his like late teens or early 20s, including a pair of reversible pants made out of denim and cotton that look like like a Rubik's Cube would be easier to solve than putting these things on. Here's a picture, hopefully. And afterwards I went to Buffalo Bob's, which is the kind of preeminent host club and dandy clothier there, which is filled with, clothing for dudes who look like this, who are standing around in the street in their pointy shoes, kind of harassing people or just want them to come to their host club. Their store is really, really awesome. And because it has like a stuffed tiger out front. And the guys who work there all look like they, literally just, came out of a host club, which is kind of a trip. And afterwards, I left Maori Men's and went to pass by the theater that's actually playing Cold Fish. And there were all these people standing outside checking it out. And there's, signs that say, screening sold out. And especially on the weekends, you literally cannot get a seat or a ticket to this film. So I was really anxious to see it. Luckily, Yoshiki had a subtitled DVD of the film, and he invited me to his place and gave me a screening of Cold Fish. A few words about Yoshiki Takahashi. I've known him for about 11 or 12 years now. One of my best friends in Japan. I know him primarily as a graphic designer. He designs a large part of Movie Treasures magazine, Egahiho, which is a really, really super fresh movie magazine. Also, he designs shirts sometimes for Bunkara, including the kind of, really like the black on white cult movie shirts that I wear sometimes, like on OTAKU-VERSE ZERO and stuff like that. And Yoshiki also designed my book, Otaku in USA, including the cover. And he's just a great guy. And as great as he is, as much fun as he is to talk to, I didn't really know that Yoshiki had like an incredible world-class film inside of him. But lo and behold, Cold Fish has come out 2 weeks ago here in Japan, directed by Sono Sion, director of Love Exposure, and co-written by both Yoshiki and Sono, based on a true crime story. And it's a film of very, very superlative sex and violence. I'm not going to lie to you, it's rough stuff. It's not for everyone. But in spite of that, the film received a 6-minute standing ovation at the Venice Film Festival when it played recently. And it has become a kind of a sleeper hit here in Japan. They're talking about the film in the mass media. It's been talked about on the daytime talk shows here, which is usually where people talk about things like, like cats in nabe pots. Or, terrible movies, terrible tear-jerking movies. All the crap that the Japanese mainstream mass media wants to foist upon the empty-headed consumers here. They're talking about Cold Fish. They're talking about a movie. The premise is a meek guy who lives with his family in his crummy house outside of the major metropolitan area, who owns a tropical fish store, becomes, against his will, an accomplice to a series of murders that are being committed by a serial killer who is an oyaji, an old middle-aged guy, and his wife, who own a gorgeous tropical fish store. And, just madness ensues, the kitchen sink, and a lot of blood and guts and boobies and stuff are thrown at you. But in a way that is, not exploitive, not an exploitation film. I can't say Cold Fish is an exploitation film, although there are certainly some elements guaranteed to jolt you out of your seat. And it's not really an art film, although there's a lot of very deep themes and artistry in the film. It is really its own beast, and anyone who can handle films that are more than a little offbeat, that aren't afraid to play rough with their audience, will be handsomely rewarded. And the incredible thing is, it's a hit, which means there's a lot of people out there who have gotten sick with, quite frankly, all the crappy movies that have come out in Japan in the last 10 years or so, probably since Battle Royale. I can maybe count on my hand, maybe 2 movies that mainstream, or anything outside of the norm that has been, worth watching, in the last 10 years. And I say this with a heavy heart, because I love Japanese films a lot, from the 60s, 70s, and the 90s, when there was an exploitation film market, when there were movies being made cheaply and quickly, in which new talent could emerge, new directors, new screenwriters could make interesting statements and make interesting films on the margins of the mainstream film world. But since the exploitation racket has basically been abandoned here in Japan, there really is no outlet for these new kinds of films. And the only people who seem to be really making them regularly is Sushi Typhoon, a collective of filmmakers and producers and dudes who've made things recently like Machine Girl, Robo Geisha, Tokyo Gore Police, and now Cold Fish, which is also part of the Sushi Typhoon label. And this is something a little more refined. It's not going to be a party movie like Robo Geisha, but you know, what this film does is it shows you something you don't normally see in Japanese films anymore, which is the depiction of everyday life among the lower middle class, or what we can call yellow trash. It really points, you know, its camera directly into the kind of incredibly immoral dark heart of Japan that I think has really, really emerged in the last 20 years or so since the economy here went south. And, you know, there's an element of satire, elements of social commentary, all these things going on in this film. And it's also kind of about the culture of oyaji, kind of middle-aged and older Japanese men who basically run the country in a way. If you stop and think about it, you don't normally see young people or women in positions of too much power here, because there's like an old dude who smells like an ashtray, who's having stamina drinks, who's really running the show and kind of controlling the emotional tenor of the atmosphere whenever those people are around. And the name of the actor who plays the serial killer in the film, the Oyaji, it's just an incredible, breathtaking performance that really, really does deserve some awards. What can I say? Yoshiki told me that it was his dream to see these kinds of dirty old men, not dirty in a dirty, sexy way, but just the kind of the coarse and vulgar depictions of middle-aged Japanese masculinity on a movie screen in Japan, because let's face it, it's been mostly a bunch of pretty boys for the last 10 years or even longer, but they're back with a vengeance. And other things about risk-taking is that the movie takes a lot of risks. It risks alienating not only its audience, but just about everyone. There's been reports of people vomiting during the final reels of the film, which is, of course, the ultimate endorsement and the ultimate sign of appreciation one can give to a film. So very tough stuff. But also, risk-taking is something I've seen in one other film this year, and it's only February, which is Gantz, which is the #1 movie in Japan right now. Sci-fi, big-budget action thriller starring two really trendy actors, Nino from Arashi and Matsuken. And in this movie, people are dismembered. An old woman and a little kid are killed, and their bodies are shown up close on camera, and the main cast gets covered in gore. And the film is a huge hit, and Cold Fish is a huge hit too. So I'm really hoping we've reached a moment where the tide is beginning to turn, and the audience is saying, no more. I want to see like a movie that's going to show me something I ain't seen before, something that is grounded in reality, something that doesn't have wall-to-wall music telling you to laugh, to cry. That's not about, you know, a love affair between like a terminally ill dude and like, you know, just whatever crummy pop star the TV companies have managed to shoehorn into a movie. So Cold Fish, fantastic stuff. According to Yoshiki, the film is looking at getting worldwide distribution soon, including in America. So you've got to check it out if you're not afraid to go into those dark places. And I know you're not, because, hey, you're watching me on YouTube. And before me and Yoshiki celebrated the blood and guts drenched ending of Cold Fish by going out and grilling up plates of raw meat at a yakiniku place, he showed me some work he's doing on the new film Yakuza Weapon, which is also coming out from Sushi Typhoon. It's an adaptation of a manga by Ken Ishikawa, the creator of Get a Robo, kind of about a Yakuza who gets blown apart and becomes kind of like the $6 million Yakuza, a human weapon, a living weapon. And Yoshiki is designing the title sequences, the posters, and he has the film, which hasn't been released yet. He's got a copy of it, and he showed me one sequence in particular, which he asked me not to divulge the details of, but technically, from a purely technical standpoint, maybe the most incredible thing I've seen on film in a very, 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 very long time. I don't know, quite frankly, how they did it. And you won't either. And I think when this film begins to appear and gets shown in festivals, people are literally going to be jumping out of their seats and frothing at the mouth, as was I. And then we went to Kabukicho. We had a gorgeous meal, talked about the movie, rapped about Sonoshio, and that whole thing. And then I came home. And today I'm buried in Otaku USA work. I have to edit the magazine, even though I'm here in Japan rocking and rolling. But at around 6 o'clock, I'm going to go to Shibuya and hit the clubs with Val Killy, my buddy whose new electro synth pop techno rock CD is out, which includes a really fantastic cover of the Gem and the Holograms theme song that I've been listening to on repeat nonstop. So I'll report on all the miraculous stuff that goes on when I hit the clubs tonight, tomorrow. Hopefully I'll still be in one piece and you'll still be here watching, and maybe you can leave some questions or comments or PayPal me $1 million so I can buy a ballpoint pen at Isetan. I don't know. Okay, so we'll see you soon. Check out Cold Fish, and see you next time. Tokyo Terminal Diary. Okay, see ya.